Yeah, that's right. I think Shield Maiden players are in for the treat when the balance changes do drop, because it looks like the Shield Maiden is getting a massive buff slash rework. And we had Seth on the stage channel today talking about some mini and hero reworks coming in the next balance changes. And like I say, it looks like the Shield Maiden this month is getting a big buff slash rework. And this is what Seth had to say on the matter inside at the Days stage channel.
We're going to make a few changes to her kit, trying to give her a bit more damage and trying to make her a bit more of sort of a focused tank. So the first change is to her super. So instead of reflecting 100% of damage, she's going to reflect 50% of damage, which means that she takes 50%, she reflects the other 50%. She's no longer damage immune, but she is still very tanky. Her Clash ability has been changed to Clash all enemies in that 3x4 template get a burning debuff for up to 10 seconds. Now, burning is 1 damage a second for 10 seconds, so this is basically 10 damage to everything that's standing in that big block in front of her. However, because it's damage over time, it can be healed, it maybe isn't relevant if it gets on a backline troop, that kind of thing. And then her third ability is Shield Maiden. Instead of having +1 energy on effective heal and +1 energy on stun, you mentioned that Barbarian King is maybe the tankiest character in the game. She's going to have a similarly tanky ability. So her third ability is being changed from +1 energy of effective heal and +1 energy when stunned to, similar to the Barbarian King, a last stand ability, where before she dies, she's going to gain 50 shield, up to 50 shield, and max energy. So right before she dies, 50 shield, turns on her block, and that gives her a huge effective pool of health.
So they did say they are only focusing on one hero a month, and next balance changes when they drop next month, that is going to be the Shield Maiden. So it'll be interesting to see whether this last stand ability, you can actually heal the Shield Maiden back up, and she's in this last stand ability. And that's going to be super broken if you can, because you'll have battle healers and healing ranges in the deck, pumping life back into the Shield Maiden when she's doing this last stand thing. I mean, I like the sound of the rework. It sounds really fun. You know, I like changes like this. It's going to shake up the meta next month, and that's for certain. But we also had a bit of a rework up to the Barbarian King. You did touch on that, and this is what you had to say.
I really like the last stand ability. I think that adding in Unstoppable to his last stand is really fun. Like it's a heroic moment. It feels cool. It makes you really, you recognize it, right? It's a very clear on the board thing happening. So we're deciding not to change that. We're going to keep that 3 seconds at Unstoppable. But his super, the 2x attack damage to all allies on the field, is maybe fundamentally broken, right? I think that ability on a tough melee attacker, as opposed to a support character or something like that, is causing a lot of constraints on design space. It makes it hard to create characters with high attack damage, because you're always having to consider, like, oh, well, yeah, and Barbarian King's going to double it. It's made cards like P.E.K.K.A. like kind of difficult to balance. P.E.K.K.A. on her own isn't really that strong, but when P.E.K.K.A.'s dealing 48 damage or whatever, you know what I mean? Like dealing just like huge amounts of damage per swing, it becomes really hard to balance her when there's always this like perpetual 2x attack damage buff. So we are changing Barbarian King next month from doubling the attack damage to +2 attack damage.
Like I said, it's going to be a bit of a buff to some of the minis with the +2 attack damage, like the Skeleton Guard and things like that, but it's going to be a nerf to the likes of the P.E.K.K.A., which is rightly so, because the P.E.K.K.A. 3-starred up with that buff off the Barbarian King. It's just ridiculous. Like one shot on everything currently inside the meta, and that's an awesome rework, I think, in my humble opinion. But also for the Skelly Kings, these are a bit of hope, because they talked about reworking the Skeleton King, trying to get some spawned skeletons pairing up with the Skeleton King, just like the Witch, because he's an undead hero. I like the fact that he could come back to life when he spawns back to life with some skeletons, and this is what they had to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, Skeleton King is one of the coolest characters, one of the coolest champions from Clash Royale, and it's awesome to see him in Clash Mini. Definitely, he's in a bit of a weird design spot because currently he only feels viable with Royal Ghost, and we all kind of saw what it felt like when Royal Ghost is overtuned, right? Like when Royal Ghost is a bit too strong for the meta, how that feels to have Skeleton King and Royal Ghost everywhere. So I think what we'd like to do is, well, Skeleton King, right? He's the king of the skeletons, and yet his kit in Clash Mini doesn't summon any skeletons, right? It's a kind of his defining feature in Clash Royale, and he sort of lacks it in Clash Mini. So what we've been looking into is how can we have him actually spawn skeletons? Trying to create that feeling of, you know, when he does his super or when he revives, having the skeleton army alongside of him.
And they are going to be changing the count S as well. He did say the count S is going to be doing minus 66%. That's quite hard to say. Minus 66% heal now to enemy minis instead of 100%, because the wizard and the Valkyrie do minus 66%. They'll want to keep it the same across the board, which I see the logic in that. I think that's a good change. But he was excited to reveal the count S when the balance changes. I didn't talk about the balance changes for the count S coming yet in the stage channel, but he says he's excited to show us what the count S is going to be when a balance changes do drops.
Yeah, I know Countess players are having a nightmare in chat. I promise you're going to like Countess after the next change, but I don't want to talk about it. That's going to be a surprise for the actual balance change. But that's not the only thing happening to Countess. She's going to be cool.
Also, touched on the Pink Fury, and there's no plans to change the Pink Fury as of yet. And I sort of agree with this. I don't think a kit's too bad, a stats are too bad. I just think the Barbarian King outshines all the heroes, and it makes the Pink Fury hard to play. But I think when the balance changes do go live next month, that the Pink Fury will shine a bit better, especially with its nerf to Barbarian King. So let's see what changes that brings when the update does go live.
There's nothing really on the slate for next month because I think Barbarian King is warping so much of the meta that it's kind of hard to understand like how good she actually is, especially because most people may not have her maxed out yet. There's probably a lot of games with people playing Pink Fury at like level 13 or something like that.
You also said in the stage channel that they're going to be leaving the Nature Born as is. They're not going to change the attack damage from the Nature Born, from the buff it gives to the allies, like the Barbarian King. And rightly so, you can't really touch the Nature Born too much now unless you're going to buff her, because she's never played inside the game as is. And also going to be leaving the Archer Queen, which is nice to hear. I like playing the Archer Queen. So a bit of good news for the Archer Queen players there. And I guess a bit of good news for the Nature Born players, but could do with better news. Could have done with a buff to the Nature Born.
Yeah. So right now, Archer Queen does not appear to be broken. I mean, she is the 6th most played hero, slightly above a 50% win rate. So I don't see a need to change her for the next month. Although, of course, just looking at stats doesn't paint the whole picture. But at least that ability is not going to change. For Natureborn, even though it is a doubling of attack damage, it's a bit more conditional. Right, you have to be able to overheal the character, which might happen once. It also requires some targeting and like being nearby to each other. There's just a bit more skill in executing Natureborn's bonus, so we're gonna leave her the same as well.
While we're on the subject of balance changes and reworks, Flack, my good buddy Flack, did ask about the Barbarian, and the Barbarian doesn't see much light of day currently in Clash Mini. And Seth did say he was going to get a bit of a rework. He didn't delve too much into what the rework was going to be, but he says at 3-star, the Barbarian's going to be pretty strong, or what it sounds like, it's going to be pretty strong. But at 3-star, so you've got to invest your elixir into the Barbarian to get him where he needs to be for the balance changes when they do go live. And this is what you had to say about the little old Barbarian.
We are going to change Barbarian a little bit, but it's one of those changes, I don't want to spoil it, but it's one of those changes where he's a little bit worse at 0 and 1 star, but much better at 2 and 3 stars. So I want you all to know that if you love Barbarian, you got to commit to Barbarian. Barbarian needs a commitment. You're going to play him on the field, you got to play him up to 3 stars.
They also talked about the special tiles inside the game. They didn't go into too much detail with the likes of the special tiles. I don't know if that's Seth's job to balance them, I guess. So I'm not sure about that. So it sounds like he couldn't give it more in-depth answer. But just quickly touch on the special tiles. This is what they said about the special tiles.
Yeah, I think, well, let's talk, I guess, first about what the goal of tiles are. The idea there is that if there was a no tile game mode and you only played without tiles and that was it, the meta would be solved a bit quicker. Hierarchies and tiers of characters would be crystallized a bit sooner, and it would be harder to break out of that. The idea of the random tiles is that characters that are maybe not that good in the normal meta get this boost and get some exposure and gameplay, from time to time. I think the frustration of tiles in the community comes from that it changes very often, and that because you see the tile before the battle, like I know I'm going into a Devil's Deal game, that requires me to go change my deck to account for Devil's Deal. And then when it changes again the next day, I need to change my deck again. So I like the randomness and the dynamic gameplay that is generated by tiles. It forces you to play a little differently than you normally play.
See, my problem with the special tiles, I don't mind the tiles. I don't mind them being rotated every day. I don't mind them being in the game. I don't mind what they are, to be honest. It sort of shakes things up, makes it a bit fun. But my problem is with the special tile rotation is that it's only got a 50% chance spawn rate. And we'll take Devil's Deal tile, for example. So you make a deck, you've got to play the Grand Warden on the Devil's Deal tile, you've got to. So you make a Grand Warden deck to pop off on the Devil's Deal tile, and you might get 5 games in a row where no tile spawns, it's just a normal board. And then you might play a meta deck like the Barbarian King deck currently in the meta, and the Grand Warden will lose to that deck. So you're playing a Grand Warden deck on the chance that you get a Devil's Deal tile, and then playing X amount of games and losing them games against a much stronger deck. Then if you get the Devil's Deal tile, your Grand Warden deck's going to pop off and you're going to probably beat that deck. So I think it needs to be one or the other. I think that if the tile's in rotation, it just needs to spawn 100% of the time for that day. That's my thoughts on the matter. And also, you need to be able to see where the second tile is going to spawn, because the game's no movement anymore. So you're going to build your deck and placements up as the rounds progress, outplay your opponent, and all of a sudden, boom, you might get that special second tile spawn in a location where you don't want it to. It ruins your setups, and it's good night to you. So that's my 2 main issues with the special tiles, but hey, we'll see what they bring in the future. We also touched on rewording things inside the game, new phrasing, and they have been working on that since the last update. We did see the introduction of new phrasing and words on the mini, and this is trying to like simplify things across the board with minis and stuff. So one word means a certain thing right across all the minis.
One of the challenges with Clash Mini that I've been trying to address with like the text overhauls is the clarity of game abilities. When you look at a character, you should be able to understand how it works and be able to sort of envision like the situations where it's good or bad. I like that idea of scaling dissipate. I think we could look into that, but I always try to keep in mind, like, how would this read in the text box? How would a new player look at this card and be able to digest it?
And like I say, they did talk about frenzy time as well. They need iron things out during frenzy time, like the stun duration. If your mini gets stunned before it goes into frenzy time, that stun duration will carry on into frenzy time, even if it's a fraction of a second before, whereas you get the reduced stun time in frenzy time. So it's not fair, and the team does know this. They do know it's something they're going to be working on. It won't be like that. It'll be like that in the next update, because they need to do a massive update for the game. So we're going to probably see the changes to the frenzy time coming when update 8 does go live.
So there is nothing happening for frenzy mode until update 8. But that's not to say that the team isn't thinking about it or focused on it. There's been multiple bugs around frenzy mode and the kind of stuff you're discussing being shared in our like tech and gameplay channel. And engineers are looking into how to solve this, as well as the true red, true blue stuff. I mean, they're really digging into the game code.
Also talked a little about clash abilities, the Prince and Bowler and Spear Goblin and things like that, and the Fisherman, the Pesky Fisherman. Not so much pesky now, we can't reach the backline minis, but they did touch on that. It didn't seem like anything was too groundbreaking, and probably a bit more game usage from the Prince, but he's not OP at the minute. He's a bit annoying, but he isn't OP. What Seth and the team was saying inside the stage channel, so they did touch on that as well.
So there's a few issues at play here, and I'll admit I don't have all the answers. We're not 100% sure on like what the perfect solution here is, but one way to look at it is that Prince is the only character that does this fundamental ability that many decks want, right? So perhaps the solution is that you would want multiple characters that either charge or displace or pull people around, so that it's not just always Prince, but some decks could run a weaker 2 elixir version, or like Fisherman or Prince kind of being a nice like A or B. If there were maybe 2 or 3 other choices that did similar abilities, most decks would include some sort of displacement effect, but it wouldn't be the exact same character every single time. That feels like a narrow meta. Like, that's one direction. The other could be that, yeah, like, it turns out we're still in a very early in Clash Minis lifespan, and if you consider the no movement change as like a total start over of the gameplay philosophy, maybe something having push and stun that can't be blocked or whatever is just too strong of a mechanic.
And also, these balance changes aren't going to go live till about October the 11th. I know we all want balance changes at the start of this fresh season, just to shake things up. I mean, a month is a long time, and you're just playing Barbarian Kings on the leaderboard. But they did say balance changes will be going live around about October 11th. This is because the extended breaks from the Supercell team have had, and rightly so, they've been working hard, so that's the reason in the delay with the balance changes. Yeah, so that's pretty much a sum up of all the things I talked about inside the stage channel. Nice chill stage channel. Like, it was nice to see Seth on the stage channel. Nice guy, bit of a chill guy. I think he's doing a great job inside the Clash Mini team with these balance changes. But yeah, looks like it's going to be an interesting one when they do go live. Shield made meta, who knows? If you like this video, consider dropping me a like down below. If you want to see more Clash Mini content like this, feel free to subscribe. Catch you guys in the next video.